What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from AlexCFE, and today we are back again with another video. Today we're going to be looking at a list for a really interesting deck, honestly something that I'm kind of glad we did get in English. It's going to be for Claudine, so I've been tooling around with like tons of different builds for this. The other day I saw Fuzzy actually post a list, and this is like mainly his list really. Like I kind of took large inspiration from it. Slight tweaks here and there just for my personal playstyle and some of the testing that I did personally with it, but overall it is pretty much his deck, so I do want to credit him up front, so thank you for that. I'll link him down below. You guys have probably seen him a million times on Twitter and whatnot. The guy does all the pie charts, so super nice guy in real life as well, so definitely go follow him. But I do want to bring attention to this deck because I think it actually is really fun. I think it's actually a really budget option to kind of get into the game, and if you have some of these staples already, it's not an expensive deck to get into, and I think that it is just actually like pretty decent. It has a really fun play style, and it's just simple overall. Like this is really some stuff that I can go to locals with and maybe even beyond just a little bit, play it and maybe catch some people off guard, and I personally really do like that. So I seem to enjoy Stoichia in Standard. I don't know why. Definitely a Dragon Empire guy, but as of late, it's just, I don't know, green's been my thing. So let's start off over here. So Claudine herself, obviously this is new to English, but it has a couple different skills over here. You basically retire 3 tokens, or 3 rear guards in general, and then you get the ability that all of your token units get an additional 5k for the turn. Your Vanguard gains that red text, and then you also get to get another drive, and this is kind of touching on something that I personally believe it really is my kind of philosophy right now in Standard. Just like, you need to be either triple driving or having multiple Vanguard swings in order to even be playable at the moment. That's just like how the meta is shaping up. That's just like the reality of the situation. So this kind of gets us there in terms of at least being a triple drive deck, which I think is, you know, strong enough. On your first grade 3 turn, even if you are going first, you still get that, which is really nice. Second skill, act on Vanguard Circle. You get to bind an order card from our drop, and then you get to spawn up to 2 plant tokens to Rearguard Circle. So a little bit of like, you know, sacrifice. You're negging 1 technically, but you're not going as hard neg as you think, because there are a lot of things that do spam units. Obviously I have the deck list in front of us over here. And then lastly, it is a 4 attack deck, because when this unit does attack, you get to Soul Blast 1, choose one of your plant tokens and stand it, and then you get an additional 5k for every 2 cards with a different name in both your bind and your drop zone. So if you have 4 total, you get plus 10. If you have 6, you know, you get plus 15. And the way this is built right now, I believe 10 is the limit. There were builds where I was playing around with 6. Let me just count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's 5 unique. There technically could be 6 if you wanted to add something else, but I think the way it really works is like you're really going for a rush. The whole idea with this deck is that it is a rush deck, and because of that, like, you don't have time to build up your bind zone, and there's too many cards you could be dedicating to maybe trying to speed that up, but it's not worth the payoff in my opinion. And I think just being absolutely consistent with this deck the way it is just a better strategy overall. So keep that in mind when you're playing it. This definitely is a rush deck. So now that we've got the Vanguard skill out of the way, we are using the Zorga ride line. It's just easier to dig deeper for some of those orders, maybe get some of them into the drop zone preemptively. My phone keeps on going off. Let me just turn this off real quick. There we go. So I do just like that in order to kind of draw a little bit more cards, just get that kind of order situation going a little bit sooner, because this is kind of like a budget Zorga in a way, not so much with Alchemagic, but just it is super reliant on orders in general, which is pretty cool in my opinion. It's like a different art style with that. Over here, I do have one of the grade 3 self-callers from the drop. Really good stride fodder, just very simple, easy, very vanilla kind of skill. Just when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, you may call this a Rearguard Circle. It doesn't have to be Persona, doesn't have to be anything. Hopping around a little bit for the grade 1, I believe, yeah, it does have to be a Persona ride over here. You can, same thing, just call this from the drop. We don't really use its glitter skill, don't worry about that, but this is a grade 1 that calls itself from the drop when your Vanguard is placed. So if your Persona ride, it does give itself 5k too, which is actually pretty nice. Hits for some sweet numbers behind the Vanguard, which I kind of like overall. Moving on to the next grade 2 over here, I'm running 2 of these. You could also run, I think Fuzzy's list, he ran 2 of the oranges. I just find that, or the grade 2 oranges from Granfia to be more specific, but I just find that I have the counterblast to spare, and while this is a 9k body, it still helps with my rush. I think that at no point in the game am I really starved for counterblast, or like feel like I really need it, and this kind of helps alleviate that like 3, the retire 3, just because when you call this down, it's placed on rear, you get this counterblast 1, call up to 2 plant tokens to Rearguard Circle. So that's pretty big in that regard. Just automatically this 1 card will satisfy the entirety of Claudine's kind of skill, and you always want to be able to, I feel like I want to sacrifice first before I use the bind from drop to get that first, get that red text and get that extra drive. This kind of helps me do it. I personally like this one. You can run the other Just call down, it spams a unit. It's a grade 2 from the Granthea. It also has a 10k body, which is nice. Either way, like you're fine. Because this is a little bit more budget, I just chose to honestly run the 4 of these instead of just including Elementary Sanctitude. I'm not willing to. I have this deck physically, so I'm not. I didn't want to like include a $20 card in kind of like an entirety of $20 deck. I am putting effect triggers in here, but the ones I played with weren't. You know, obviously I would include those if you have it. That is the optimal way, and I'm kind of showing you, I guess, the optimal way to play it. But over here, the real MVP of the deck, Burrow Mushroom, so good. Super nice with the new order card that we got, which I will go over. But you just put this into Soul, and you spawn 2 of plant tokens. You don't get the Granthea specific skill for this over here, but honestly, super nice at any point in the game, late game, early game. This is Value City. It just fuels your soul, so it helps you with Claudine's restand skill. Also just gets those bodies on board. That's good for a sacrifice engine, good for booster, good for rush. It's good for everything. So definitely want this card. I would say you can mull for it. Like if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but the mulling in this deck is kind of weird. I'm still trying to figure out the priorities, but if you are willing to rush and you think you have the right setup for it, like, yeah, go mull a little bit more aggressively for that. But we already covered the Moth Girl over here. She's super cheap too, by the way. I think that's like the only triple rare in this set. Yeah, in this deck, actually. Yeah, that is, but she's like super cheap, so it's not really that big of a deal. 4 of this girl over here, Salvia. You can choose to bump her down and add some more orders. Originally, I was running a super heavy order lineup, and I found that was like really good for different stages of the game, but my results were kind of inconsistent. Something like this, it just, when placed down, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may call a plant token. Just getting 2 bodies on board, again, is like really solid, and this is like a token deck at the end of the day, and I'll show you why in just a second, but we really need to just spam bodies, and this definitely helps us with it. Let me skip ahead over here too, also to the Blessings of the Flowering Bud. So this is the new order. Thank God it's a rare, because I feel like this would be super expensive if it wasn't. It goes in a bunch of different decks for Stoichia. Until the end of turn, all your units with original 5k or less get an additional 10k, and the red text that when this unit attack hits, you may return it to hand. We don't really want to return to hand, it's not a big deal, but the extra 10k makes your 5k bodies into 15ks plus your Vanguard skill, which should at least put it to a 20k body, which is really nice. And then if you are Persona Road, you know, if you did Persona Ride that turn, you do get an extra 10k obviously to the front row, so you just make really sweet numbers very effortlessly in this deck, and I feel like that's like the real advantage of it. You just have this super powerful order, you have some defensive bulk out, you have a very easy, simple kind of strategy, and the deck kind of almost plays itself. I like that personally, especially in like in an environment where you don't want to have to think and like maybe make pilot mistakes as much. I feel like there is something to be said for decks that are a little bit easier to play but still very consistent overall. Maybe the ceiling might not be as high as something as like Zorga, for example, but you know, the floor is a bit higher as well, so you're not going to have those lows necessarily. So I think that is important just to mention. And then Carry On Processing over here, really cool card. I wasn't thinking about playing this until I saw Fuzzy's list. So act on Rearguard Circle, counterblast 1, bind this unit, choose an order card from your drop, put it into your hand. My issue is I was running out of these. Like, you know, you see 1, you see 2 throughout the game, you might not see all 4, and you get to like 2 grade 3 rides. I know this is a rush deck, but sometimes you run through these and you aren't able to kind of keep up the momentum because you did want to rush early. So you play, this is a grade 0, you play this on your grade 2 turn, you know, you have a 2 units in the front, you have a full back row of tokens, or at least 2 boosters of tokens. This really makes very uncomfortable situations for your opponent, especially if you go first. So you want to use these very often, and I think that this Butcher is honestly like so good in culmination with that. Like, you just being able to get that back to your hand is super important. Just recycle it for next turn. Like, you can extend just like 1 into like at least 2 turns, which is really nice. So I think this is definitely a solid inclusion overall. I really like that. Getting into the orders themselves, this is expensive. You can swap this out. I actually kind of like the new one that kind of mills, Counterblast 1, mills 5, it's a grade 0. Add something to hand that's greater than or equal to your Vanguard. That's a viable kind of swap. You could also do yellow, the yellow Zorga, Gather Upon Me, You Wandering Souls. You can do any of the recursion kind of orders if you don't really want this one to pay for it. I think it's like around the $10 mark, might be a little bit less, but I know that could be a little bit barrier when the rest of the deck is fairly cheap, so just a heads up for that. But basically all you do is you look at the top, what is it, 7 cards here? Yeah, 7 cards of your deck, grade equal to or less than your Vanguard, call it to Rearguard, shuffle your deck. When this card would be called from deck, you can put it into your hand. It's that section of the skill doesn't really matter. This is really just digging into your deck, getting a unit card onto the field. And again, it's good for that early rush. Like, you can go and find the Claudine, for example, and go pop her down. You can go find the Burn Mushroom. You can find anything and basically go and start to spam a board pretty easily overall. Over here too, Sweets That Become an Evil Dream, just a very solid generic card. I think it's being played in a ton of Stoichia decks now, especially in Zorga, things of that nature. Plays with the Counterblast 1, you get to draw a card, look at the top card of your deck. You can either put it onto the top of my deck or discard it. Just easy, an extra card draw. Just rigging your deck is always solid as well, especially when you're doing like a triple drive. Like, it's always good to kind of know what's there. And just early game, really digging. We already went over this guy over here, such a good order card. Something that I do actually think is pretty decent, and I was running the Searchers for a while. I was cutting this down by 1. I didn't have the Maple. I had like 2 of the triple rare grade 2 Searchers. They're super cheap as well, just to kind of consistently get names in my drop when I was focused on a more order heavy build. But I think that without it, it's kind of fine as well. Like, you need to be focusing on the rush more so than like just the orders overall, and irregardless, this is actually a really solid card. So plays with Soul Blast 1, choose one of your units, gets 15k until the end of battle. Then if your drop has a Blitz order, it gets 25k instead. So really nice to just kind of get around some of the guard restrict stuff. It says no Sentinels. This is a Blitz order, so it does get around that, just like the Elementaria, for example. Also, Fine Drink of Abolishment for Sins. Same kind of concept. If you have a bunch of different names in your drop and bind zone, you get the Soul Blast 1, and then you draw a card. Choose one of your units, gets 5k until the end of battle for each order card with different card name in your drop and bind zone total. So if you have 4, it gets an extra 20k shield. So very, very easy. Gets a card and drop, no big deal. And that is pretty much it with the deck, aside from the triggered lineup. Just quickly, you can go draws in here. I personally like fronts just because it makes that like 2-to-pass situation a brainless kind of thing. It's automatically going to reply to the front row. You should always have 2 standing units for the most part. There are some instances if you run different orders. There's like the Magnolia one that when a unit attacks, give it the red tax, it gets 5k. I've seen some people include that. In that case, maybe the draw triggers are a little bit better, and I get it, you do want to draw into pieces, but I just feel for the reason that you do have a completely standing front row. Also, you do have a triple drive. I just feel like this is the right choice for the deck. Personally, I also think in the meta right now, numbers are getting like pretty big again. Obviously there's Amon Grigio running around, and I feel like the 10k triggers just don't really cut it anymore. I do personally like the fronts, just in my opinion, so that is my reasoning there. Also, I'm running just 8 crit. You have to close out the game. You have to do it. It's a rush deck. You want to see those crits, you want to see them often and early. 4 vanilla of the heal guard, heal triggers. You can use any effect ones that you want. I do like the Stoichia also over here. Like I said, you do have a full front row, so it's going to benefit not only from that 100 million, but that extra front row power that it does get, as well as the card draw, as well as the heal. It's just like such a good omni trigger altogether. Like, I really do actually enjoy that one. I think it's pretty dang good. So yeah, that is pretty much the deck profile over here. Let me know what you guys think. I'm actually having a blast playing this. I think this is like really not one of the more slept on decks, but just underappreciated or maybe under talked about. I think there's so many decks right now that actually are playable that we don't really see, and I guess I can make a separate video out of this altogether, but I feel like we do have a lot of hive mind in the game. Things are pretty consistent. People need to, I think, feel like venture out a little bit more, do what they believe, play what they believe, and I think that you will see some good results overall, and you get better as a player that way as well. I personally believe that. So thank you guys again. If you are interested in purchasing any of the cards you see here today, we do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. Absolutely no cost to you. You can shop that link to help support the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Never ask you guys for money or anything like that, any donations, no subscriptions, so that is a huge help to me. Thank you in advance. Also, if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you again. This is Alex from Alex CFE signing out.